happened. The best character has descended from on high to grace the screen and make this show feel like an actual show again. Now, many of you may be saying, I'm a little bit biased because this is our Keter Sanctuary player, and I'm a Keter Sanctuary player as well, but I will contend that this guy actually is really interesting, and I really want to see where things are going, and I like the way they worked card games into his character, and I like the way the show doesn't necessarily present anything as easy. And we'll get into that. So let's begin right where the episode begins with Toya's introduction. And so Toya's introduction is very interesting because it acts as a contrast to his appearance in episode 1. In episode 1, he was the guy who lost, and that is how you will remember him leaving that first episode, is he's the guy who lost. But in this episode, we start off with seeing he is a winner at literally every other facet at life. You see him at medical school, where he's asked to give a speech at the graduation for the upcoming class. And he's like, oh, it'd be awesome. And then he's just nonchalantly walking out, and like 2 of the women are just like, oh, look at Toya, he's so hot, oh god, he gets me all wet. And remember, this is a very horny card game anime, so that's probably what the insinuation is. So anyway, so then he leaves there, and he meets up with his boyfriend, the bold dude, and then they drove to his first part-time job where he's working at a video store that had the big ol', 18 and older section on it, and I saw that sign, I'm like, okay, that's random for a card game anime. Or you find out this guy has, increased business and made it better, which seems feasibly impossible in today's world to save a video store, but okay. And then, the friend is in the plus 18 section, looking like he's buying quite a bit. This man might have some problems. He might get the next story arc. And then he goes on to another part-time job. I think the next one was the arcade, where we find out he has turned that into a great business, and the boyfriend wants to go play a fighting game. I'm going somewhere with this. And then we move on to the third part-time job he has, where he is working at a bathhouse, and the dude is naked and in the female bath while he's cleaning it. Okay. Cardfight Vanguard Overdress. This is what we have to deal with, boys. So then he then talks to the waitress, the receptionist lady, doesn't matter. And she's like, oh, you should have fun in a while. And he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go to this other town, meet this dude I want to have sex with. And then they're driving, and you get the glimpse of him in the hospital. And the way it's sort of framed is that's why he wants to be a doctor. He was a card fighter who maybe lost somebody, and now he's going to become a doctor. And this, I thought, was an interesting little contrast, because as we then find out, it's actually the opposite. He wanted to be a doctor first, but what you saw was that it was mostly because the parents were forcing it on him. They wanted him to be successful. They wanted him to be a medical student. They wanted him to do all these things, that parental pressure. And what was sort of important was that the bit where when the dad asks, what do you want for your birthday? And the kid and Toya can't think of anything, that's a bit more important than you realize, because what they're trying to tell you in that moment is Toya doesn't really have a life of his own or thoughts of his own. He just kind of does what his parents tells him, and he spends all his time on schoolwork, and he doesn't really have any identity outside of that. And the grandmother realizes this is kind of a problem. He's going to end up a head case, or, most Asian stereotypes. So then the grandmother gives him Vanguard. She gives him the deck, the deck I have, gives him Bastion and sends him off to go be a card fighter. And where you assume the stereotype is going is that this is actually good for Toya, which it is. But you think that it's just going to be, it's going to finally make him happy, and the parents won't understand, blah, blah, blah. And while that is part of it, what I think is interesting is that it shows that Toya does kind of become obsessed with Vanguard. He does become fixated. He's still able to maintain his grades, but because he wants to maintain both being a Vanguard fighter and a medical student, it results in him pushing himself too hard, being out late, like not having as much energy, like he's trying so hard to make everything work, and when the grandmother who's worried about him tries to confront him about it, he has already like gotten so obsessed with Vanguard, he's like, no, it's more than just a game! Like, it's gone beyond that point to where it's about having fun and relaxing. And it is just turned into the same thing with the medical thing. He's always got to overachieve. He's always got to be the best. He's always got to be the strongest. It's not presenting things as a very simple problem. Like, there is a complexity to it. Like, Toya has his own faults as a human being. He's not just a victim to the way his parents are. That's not to say the parents are guilt-free in this, but by showing that he has also had negative implications because of his own actions, it makes him feel like an actual character. He's not just an entity or like a thing that has a plot around him. He feels like a person. I feel like there are some very intentional parallels to Shion here. I mean, they're both blonde, but also like they deal with family expectations. They want to meet up to expectations. They are very good at a lot of things. And Vanguard is sort of this interesting awkwardness in their life, if they will. They both want to be dedicated to it. Vanguard means something to them more than a card game, and what you see over the course of the series is how that kind of like affects them both in their lives and mentally and all these different things. The problem, though, with the G characters, and this was a problem also in, say, Shadowverse, is they're not motivated by anything besides just, I want to play Vanguard or Shadowverse. And while that is technically kind of realistic, because most of us are just motivated to play card games because we're fun, it doesn't really make for an interesting story or an interesting character. So when you add this angle to it of it's what kind of is defining him because it's the only thing that feels like his own thing, I think that makes it very interesting. And when you work it in with the storyline of the grandmother and what happened with her and all of that, I think it also makes it very interesting. He wants to play Vanguard because that is something that makes him feel whole. It's something that feels like his own thing, but he also wants to live up to that family expectations, and he wants to be able to help people and care for people and do all these things. And I like seeing how that kind of conflicts within him. But what I also like is it's an interesting contrast to Yu Yu. Yu Yu is very much just kind of a normal kid. As far as we can tell, he's probably average in school. He seems to have a somewhat strange but average home life. And for him, Vanguard is just kind of about having fun. But it also gives him a strong sense of identity. And seeing how this conflicts with what Toya views things, I think is actually very interesting. It makes both characters seems a lot more interesting than they were turning out to be otherwise. I also like that things that happen from episode to episode kind of matter. Like Donji being in the wrestling match just happened, so he's still injured from that. And with the bald guy, what I think is sort of interesting is he came to Toya when Toya was very conflicted, and it almost kind of comes off as he's maybe more worried about Toya. He senses that Toya is kind of lost in life and wants to help him out with that. I think that actually could make for a very interesting character. Because at first, you just look at this guy and you think, oh, he's probably the villain. It's like, actually, no. He is just kind of this good guy who just kind of maybe just wants to help this kid out and sort of keep him on the right path. I'm genuinely fascinated to see where this is going. That final shot of Toya in the rain is really artistic, and I think it's a really interesting way to show off this character. So yeah, after kind of being a little worried last week, I think we're back on track, and I'm really interested to see where this is going. Also, the card fight was fun too. I still feel like the focus is not on the card fight, but we got enough of it. I could follow it. I understood how everything was going. I like seeing the Sakuga again, seeing Bastion go off. The only thing is, I forget the grade 3 for Dragon Empire's name again. He is very Chrono Jet Dragon. Even the way he moves is very much just Chrono Jet Dragon. Am I the only one who's noticed this? So yeah, but that is what it is. That was this week's episode of Cardfight Vanguard Overdress. I want to see what happens next. As for the Vanguard question of the week, trial decks are out for some people. In case you didn't hear, set 1 and the trial decks was delayed has had trouble shipping due to everything going on. So some people have it, some people don't. I have mine, and me and my friends enjoyed trial deck meta. So my question to all of you is, do you like trial deck meta? Because it is kind of fun playing with everything a little bit while it's simple before it gets all weird and insane. But it also gets annoying because you're kind of locked into certain specified things that just come in the trial deck that you yourself probably wouldn't use once you get to screw around with the deck. But tell me that below. And as always, click to like, click subscribe, and join me next week for more Toya. I like Toya.